So an important story just came out regarding the status of marijuana in this country. So this is from Politico. Federal scientists conclude there is credible evidence for certain medical uses of marijuana. Written by Natalie Fertig, published January 12th. The Department of Health and Human Services concluded that marijuana is less harmful than other dangerous drugs and that there is some evidence of its medical benefits in recommending loosening federal restrictions on the drug. The agency on Friday released a 252-page review outlining the reasoning that the Food and Drug Administration used to come to this conclusion. It states that there exists some credible scientific support for the medical use of marijuana in at least one of the indications for which there is widespread current experience in the United States. This and other findings of the review are a major departure in how the federal government views cannabis. For the last 60-plus years, cannabis has been classified as a Schedule I drug, the same as heroin. We'll come back to that. Under the Controlled Substances Act, which means it's a substance of high abuse potential and no accepted medical use. The review was conducted at the request of President Joe Biden, who instructed HHS in an executive order issued in October 2022 to look through all available research on cannabis and recommend if the drug should be moved within the list of federally controlled drugs or removed from it altogether. Bloomberg first reported in August that HHS had recommended marijuana to be moved to Schedule III, and the release of these documents on Friday confirms that. While there are dozens of medical conditions people use cannabis for, the FDA looked at 7: anorexia, anxiety, epilepsy, inflammatory bowel syndrome, nausea and vomiting, pain, and post-traumatic stress. The review identified mixed findings of effectiveness across indications. Some data was inconclusive, some was favorable. Largest evidence base for effectiveness exists for marijuana use within the pain indication, in particularly neuropathic pain. That's a big change because marijuana's position in Schedule I indicated the federal government believes there is no indication of medical use for marijuana. Okay, so this is one of those political issues that's like, it's not even like interesting to talk about, because for some issues, there's at least, I can understand multiple sides to them. With marijuana legalization, it's very hard for me to understand what is even being debated. And that's not to mention that the majority of Americans, I haven't looked at the most recent poll, but I think the majority of Americans support marijuana legalization, Democrats and Republicans. I mean, this is just the, one of the dying remnants of the long, the Nixon administration from long ago, when they were using anti-drug policies to get back at, the African American community and the LGBT community, and the hippie movement. But I want to just briefly, so currently it's a Schedule I drug, and it's categorized with heroin. So, just a quick, this is from Medline Plus. So this is just the long-term effects of heroin. People who use heroin over the long term may develop many different health problems. These problems could include liver, kidney, and lung disease, mental disorders, and abscesses. People who inject the drug also risk getting infectious diseases such as HIV, hepatitis, bacterial infections of the skin, bloodstream, and heart. They can also get collapsed veins. When a vein collapses, the blood cannot flow through it. As opposed to marijuana, which long-term effects include problem with brain development. People who started using marijuana as teenagers may have trouble with thinking, memory, and learning, coughing and breathing problems if you smoke marijuana frequently, problems with child development during and after pregnancy if a woman smoked marijuana while pregnant. So, I mean, all drugs Oh, I don't think I was sharing my screen, was I? No, I don't think I was. Well, this is the marijuana article. And this is the heroin article. But point being, all drugs do have side effects. We know this. And if a drug's side effects are, roughly in the range of like, well, probably shouldn't take them when you're pregnant. Probably shouldn't take them when you're, super young and developing, when your brain is developing, and coughing. That's insane. Those, compared to the long-term effects I listed for heroin, that is nothing. Absolutely nothing. And that's not to mention, the medical benefits. I mean, for pain management is what this study apparently mentioned. But another one, surprisingly, I'm not certain about the science behind it, is glaucoma. Can also help. I've heard anecdotally with nausea. So if cancer patients who have to undergo chemotherapy will often smoke a little marijuana to help with those symptoms. So there does seem to be some. It might be minor, but there does seem to be at least some medical benefit. I mean, I would argue it's a little more than minor. But even if you want to be like, okay, it's just entirely minor. Heroin doesn't have medical benefit. The hard drugs, hard drugs generally don't have medical benefit, if you know what I mean. And so, I mean, if you want to know my opinion, I think all drugs should be legalized, taxed, and regulated. But at the very least, if we're going to start somewhere, legalize marijuana. We're in the 21st century now. I think it's time, we be rational about this.